Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including Rick Tocchet, standing by, are sponsored by Passat Motors. There are huge holiday savings at Passat Motors. No GST, no gas, no payments. Check out the great offers at Passat Motors, BASANTmotors.com. Vancouver Canucks start a 5-game homestand at Rogers Arena Tuesday against the New Jersey Devils. And joining us now for the first time on the show, Canucks head coach Rick Tocchet. Rick, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. What do I get? What do I get for the first time? Do I get like a coffee mug?
Yeah, sure. What we've got hats. We've got
hats. Bucket hat, Rick.
Hey, talk to
I need hats.
Talk to McEwen. He'll arrange it for you.
Yeah,
okay?
talk to McEwen. We'll get it over to you.
You got it. You got it.
We've been trying to get you on for a long time. What's it like working in a Canadian market with a Relentless Media, Rick? Are you okay with that?
Well, in Arizona, but I might have had maybe one or two beat guys around. Craig Morgan was the only guy. Yeah, it's different. I mean, I'm used to it. I was somewhat with TNT doing the media part of it, right. So I understand that part of it. But yeah, it's big around here.
Do you get recognized a lot going around town?
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, a lot more than other places. Usually the places that you play a lot they're visible, but yeah, definitely here. And I'll tell you what, the experience has been great. People have been great on the street. It's a great city. I mean, how can you not love the city?
Hey, by the way, getting back to what you were talking about earlier, the TNT the ratings are up. They put on a very, very good product. Just your thoughts on having worked there and the job they're doing.
Yeah, I love their philosophy. People always ask me when you get in there, do they script you? Very rarely they give you a couple of talking points. They'll ask me what I want to talk about, but it's really an organic thing. They want you to off the cuff. I mean, sometimes we got to keep Paul Bissonnette under control once in a while, but it's more organic. They want stories. They want they want you to educate the fan because it's a new viewership, TNT, right? So I do love the concept. Look at the NBA guys with Barkley and Shaq and those guys kill it. It's a different way of kind of giving your perspective to the fans. Yeah,
also a TNT product with the NBA on TNT. By the way, I think Wayne Gretzky is low-key funny, low-key humorous guy. Hey, hockey now, Rick. You've alternated losses and wins the last 8 games. I'm sure you're aware of that, but this is something you've talked a lot about. How tough is it to maintain consistency in the National Hockey League?
Well, it's hard. I mean, you're playing teams now that they're ready for you. You're not the team of last year where you're not in the mix. So some teams don't have their guard up. Now teams have their guard up. Our records is a good record. Now they're like, okay, what's going on there? We got to be ready for this team. So now consistent sustainability is the next thing. The next for this group. It's hard to do the right things all the time, and that's the one thing we preach around here. Is that, if we're looking for certain things, it's hard to do every time. And we've done it in a small sample size, what's a quarter of the season's gone, but there's so many games left and there's so many important games coming up that we know that we're going to have to raise our level if we want to make this sustainable.
Rick, I know it was a few days ago, but somewhat of a landmark game. What did you learn from the loss to Las Vegas?
Well, I call it a little baptism for us to realize, we weren't ready. And obviously that falls on the head coach. You try to get guys ready to play. Whether we were cocky, I'm not quite sure. But, Vegas came in. I mean, obviously we got them at the wrong time. They lost 3 in a row. They haven't been playing that well. But it seemed like they came in and said, we're going to play our game. And we got impatient. We didn't play to their level. That's what happened. So I'm glad it happened at game 25 or whatever it was and not game 65, put it that way.
Rick, changing culture, changing the mindset, the bad habits, and this team had a ton, no playoffs, 7 of 8 years. Is that where you think you've made the most progress? Is the culture, the habits, and all that stuff? Because that seems to be where you're making the most inroads.
Yeah, I think accountability is something, when you come in here is one I really wanted to spearhead here, even with our staff. our practice habits, I felt is something we're getting better. We're not to the level we should be yet, but I have to give the players a lot of credit. They've worked hard this summer, and the practices are getting better. But I still think our practice habits got to go to a different level. Those are the things I think how you change culture around, and obviously, partnership with the players. You got to make the players understand why you're doing things, give them the reasons why, explain to them. I think you just can't be a tyrant and say you're doing this and then walking out of the office. I think you really got to explain and educate the players because some players have never been there before. They've never put themselves to that level. There's an uncomfortable level you have to go to win, and it's we're trying to find our way to that level.
Rick, you were not here when Besser and his agent asked for a trade. Now he leads the NHL in goals, but he cares about his 200-foot game, battling for pucks, forecheck, better body positioning on the ice. He credits you for all that. How does that feel?
Yeah, well, I credit him. I mean, he's taken the information and he's taken it to a different level. What I love about Bess now, he'll come up to me and he'll say, "Talk, those last 2 games, I didn't play well. I didn't do this and that." Like, he's telling me. I think, I'm not sure last year he would have done that as much, or certain players. I love the accountability in Bess, and that's why he is having a great year, and that's why I play him the last minute of the game, because I see the commitment that, that he's willing to do. And then there's some games where, sometimes I don't even have to remind him, he might be out of position, or he might not go into a guy. But he'll tell me, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And that's when you got a player dialed in.
Hey, Rick, I want to ask you about Hoglander, 7 goals on the 4th line. What does he have to do, in your eyes, to play higher in the lineup?
Yeah, it's an interesting guy. I mean, I really like Hoggy. We got to get his hockey IQ up a little bit. Hash mark down, I really like his game. Defensively in position, I think sometimes people have to realize that. And I know, and that's the one thing I want to ask you guys. Big analytics town around here, and I do like analytics, but you got to be careful. I'm an eye test guy.
Yeah.
With Hoggy, I got to learn to trust him in certain situations. Make sure he's in certain spots. But when he's forechecking, being a pest, he deserves some more time. And I will tell you, he does deserve more time. Unfortunately, he doesn't penalty kill. I might actually start to get him on the power play in the second unit to get him more minutes. I think that will help get him going a little bit where he doesn't have to sit the bench for 5 minutes. So I got to try to get him out there a little bit more. You guys are right. Instead of playing like 10 minutes, 11 minutes, he's got to get out there. Hopefully, if he plays that second unit where he will get those extra minutes and probably get in the flow of the game a lot quicker for him, because it is hard to sit the bench for 5-6 minutes when there's power play and penalty killing. And then you're probably the third rotation guy to go out there. So that's about 4 or 5 minutes. That's tough on a player.
Hey, Rick, if you're looking for a deep dive on analytics, you got the wrong show.
Okay, good.
No, we're not that smart. There's other guys.
I'm not either.
Yeah, it's just
Canucks Twitter, Rick. All the answers on Canucks Twitter.
It's just not going to happen.
I mean, it's funny because I do like analytics in its place and it's important, but I think sometimes you got to be careful because sometimes you read analytics and you're like, really? That they had this guy playing a great game or this guy playing a bad game? Like you have to have the eye test. The really good like we use analytics, but we don't overblow it. So I think it's kind of a happy medium.
Yeah, it's a tool to use. Quin Hughes, how tough is it as a coach, as a head coach, to ride the line between winning and playing him too much?
Yeah, you're right, and we're guilty of that a little bit, of playing him too much. But I felt we had to establish ourselves early in the season. We had to make a run here to you got to get some wins, and I think we did that. Now, obviously, getting the big guy, Big Z, in our lineup, getting a big trade by Patrick, getting him really helps kind of solidify the piece of the pie. So it's a tough one. I think we have overplayed them, especially the last 7-8 games, and I think that's affected our team a little bit. But the record we're having so far is pretty good, and I think, if I had to do it again, I'd probably do it again because now we can kind of maybe cut back the minutes, and we're not in like critical situation with wins and losses, even though we want to win every game.
Delaney's okay, Tire and Langley inbox. This is the way people communicate with us, Rick. A lot of people saying, ask Tocchet about the size and grit. Have the Canucks got enough size and grit? So with that in mind, Rick, what's Nikita Zadorov going to add to your hockey club?
Well, I think net front box outs, like, I think that's something we can improve on in front of our net. And obviously in front of their net, too. We need people to get to the net. And we've really improved forward-wise, getting to the net a little bit more than last year. I think getting a guy like Z, he's going to really help that. He's like those cycle busters. He can go in a corner and win those battles and get that puck. I think that's really important. Cuts down possession time for the other team. Obviously a guy like Dakota Joshua, I thought his game the last 4 or 5, 6 games has been really good. He's probably been our best board guy. And that's why he was out the last minute of the game or the other night. Those are the guys you have to have if you want to be successful in the playoffs. So we're getting there. We're getting a bit, I think we can still get grittier, but we have the personnel to do it. It's just the mindset. We got to get the mindset up, but we're getting there.
Where's Andrei Kuzmenko's game at, Rick?
I actually liked him the last couple of games better. I think maybe a little change of scenery might help him. But I want to see a little bit more net drive from him. I want to see him be around the net more. Obviously a little more conscientious in his own end. We got to rely on him in certain spots. He has to be. Obviously we're not looking to be a sulky winner. I'm not trying to make him into a defensive forward. That's not my goal. But my goal is to him to, he has to be in his own end, know where to be at certain times. There's been some goals where, he hasn't been in the spot we're supposed to be. And if you're not scoring, you got to make sure you're in those spots. If you're scoring, you can kind of overlook some things. But when you're not, that's when you got to make sure it's important that he knows the little things matter. And they little things matter to me and this coaching staff and to the team.
Okay, before we let you go, this gentleman is well known around these parts, but Mike Keenan, I think I've got this right, was your first NHL head coach.
Wow.
What was that? What was that like, and what kind of an influence has he had on you as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things about Mike I didn't like at the time, but to this day, he may be a better hockey player. He was ahead of his time. He kind of started back, and I started 83 with him, 84. All the NHL teams were practicing 2-hour practices. They were slow paced. When I got there, when Mike Keenan got there, 45-minute high tempo. Everybody had their own water. Back then, there was maybe 3 water bottles on the bench. Everybody had his own water bottle. We had a lot of team dinners. There was a lot of new age stuff that teams do now that he started back in the 80s. So I give him a lot of credit for that. The one thing, he's a little bit, I don't want to say militant, but it was he didn't explain very much why. He was very smart. And I think today's game, as a coach, you have to be able to explain things, and it has to be a partnership with the players. That's probably the difference in the 80s until now. But there's a lot of great things about Mike, and obviously he's a successful hockey coach. And in that time, that worked.
Did he scratch you ever?
So a good story. I got scratched. Me and Dave Brown had to skate. It was a 1:00 game. We had to go out at 8:30 in the morning, and we got our asses skated. And then, then you shower there. You're out of there because the team's coming. We were at the press room getting something to eat because back then that's what we did. We didn't have the lounges they have now. So me and Brownie are eating. It's an hour before the game. The warm-up's over, and he comes in. He goes, "You're playing." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, he didn't like the way a guy took warm-up. There was a guy named Todd Bergen. I don't know if you guys know that. Anyways, I played no warm-up with a belly full of food, and I think he played me. He actually played me quite a bit. That was Mike Keenan. That's what he used to do.
The story would have been better if you said you got a hat trick. But we'll accept it. Yeah.
No, I might. Hey, back then I might have had a fight. I didn't score, so I might have had a fight. That's about it.
You had a lot of points. You had a lot of points.
I think you did pretty well. Mike Keenan kept everybody, including the media, on their toes. Hey, talk to Craig McEwen. We'll get you that souvenir mug, Rick. Okay. Done deal.
You got it.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks.